was a lacklustre question time, if ever there was one, from the government for vested interest, Deputy President. And our questions this afternoon were about the issues that are important to the Australian people in relation to their cost of living, interest rates, taxation policy, superannuation policy. These are the things that impact Australians. And to hear Senator Pratt say that these are not the issues that impact the Australian people is actually quite offensive. Now, the reality is that interest rates are stubbornly high in Australia because there is a massive inflation problem in this country which comparable nations are not having to deal with. And the reason that inflation is running so high is because of public sector spending. Labor can't say no to their favourite vested interests. They keep on spending taxpayer funds. That is making the inflation problem so much worse. And households and small businesses are getting smashed. And it is outrageous for Dr Chalmers, the Treasurer, to say that the Reserve Bank is smashing the Australian people. It is him and his government, through their lacklustre fiscal policy, who is smashing the Australian people. So taxes are up. That is also eroding the household budgets of the Australian people. And one of the things that this parliament will live to regret is the reinsertion of a tax bracket that was abolished by the last parliament. Who would have believed that we would turn back the clock and put a tax bracket back in place? And the fact that that has happened has locked in bracket creep in the long term. There will be more and more bracket creep, and the Commonwealth budgets will be riding high on stealing people's income to pay for surpluses and the like here in Canberra. So the government is offering nothing for small business, absolutely nothing. Nothing in relation to cutting regulation, cutting taxes, or doing things like accelerated depreciation. So there is no wonder that business investment is flatlining and the economy is turning sour, because the government could do things like cut regulation and cut taxes. And until they do that, we are heading for the rocks, I fear, because the central charge against this government is that it is a government for vested interests, and it only works hard for the unions and the special interests like the super funds, and can't bring itself to work hard on inflation or on things like housing. But the other part of this very revealing question time was that the government is against choice. And in the questions on the paid parental scheme, it was very clear that the government think it's a bad idea for new parents to be given access to their own money, and they want it locked away for 40 years in a superannuation fund. Now, for anyone who's had children, they would know that when you have children, you need to buy nappies. Nappies is more important than superannuation when you're having children. And so the idea that the government will deny people choice, access to their own money, shows how paternalistic this government is and how they believe that the Australian people are too stupid to save for their own retirement. There is no rule that says that the only way you can save for retirement is through the Labor Party's favourite superannuation scheme. There are other ways to do it. Australians know how to pay a mortgage. They know how to tighten the belt when the going gets hard. And so the idea that the Australian people are too stupid and need to have all this paternalistic policy is frankly very offensive. But it is revealing that this is the character of the modern Labor Party, that has such a low view of the Australian people, that they are too stupid to save for their own retirement. Now, that is not our policy and not our position. We think that the Australian people are smart enough to make their own judgments. And if they want to put the money into superannuation, fine. If they want to put the money into their own living expenses, fine. If they want to do something like negatively gear to provide an investment property for someone else, fine. That is our view, that people are smart enough to look after themselves. So that is the choice that is coming for the Australian people next year, or maybe later this year, I assume next year. It will be a choice between a party and a coalition that is in favour of empowering people to make their own judgments about their own lives and seeking to support small business. And on the other side, you have a Labor Party that thinks that the Australian people are too stupid to make their own judgments and have no interest in helping small business to invest and to grow. And it is locked into a corporatist, unionist mindset where it thinks that the function of government is to funnel money and policy in favour of special interests, which is a sickness and a cancer on the Australian polity. And it is showing that Alfred Deakin was right 100 years ago when he said Labor's problem was that it was beholden to vested interests.
Put the question.